What's up YouTube? It's Chris Moustache, and I must ask a bunch of questions when I'm watching a movie. We're gonna get into another review. Let's get in it. Today I'll be reviewing Onward, which was directed by Scanlon, and it is a Pixar Disney movie. In a world where mystical creatures have stopped using their magic and their abilities and now have relied on modern technology, two elven brothers go on a quest to bring their father for one day back from the dead so they could talk to him and get some closure. The setting in which this movie takes place is very imaginative and alluring. This nuanced perspective on mystical creatures living in a modern world is very new, fresh. It's sort of similar to the movie Bright. It's a Netflix movie. All the characters that you'll see in this world are colorful, they're vibrant, they're alive, they're breathing, they're very energetic. We get to see creatures like centaurs, elves, pixies, and any other fantastical creature that you can think of. The character design in this film is playful, dreamy, and fun. And when you match that with the animation, which is typical to Pixar and Disney movies, it's very energetic, it's playful, and it's bouncy. The theme in this film is well executed and mature. So we're starting to see a little bit of the inklings of Pixar's mature themes in this film. So this film focuses on these brothers' relationship with their father and their need to see that father. And it's a very mature idea, and it's constantly reminded to us during this film. This is sort of where it gets into a little bit of its downfalls, but I'll go into that later. But that theme alone is so well executed, so reminded that we know by the end of the film what they're trying to get at. Eventually that theme transforms into something more original that they only brush upon. The chase scenes, and there's a lot of them in this movie, are explosive and they're very fun to watch. Another great thing about this movie, the brothers are very distinct from each other. They are complete opposites, which makes their personalities very unique, but also that type of technique where you make characters the complete opposite of each other borderlines cliche. The biggest weakness of this film is the character development and character relationships. So let's start with character relationships. The relationships in this film are very quaint and innocent. We can already expect that from a Disney movie, from an animated movie, that these type of relationships are going to be very PG-13, PG particularly because this movie was rated PG, but they're going to be very innocent, very quaint, very adorable, cute, and almost generic. But the problem with this film is that even with those relationships that are supposed to be these very innocent relationships, they are free of conflict. And the problem with that is there is no conflict. We don't get that nice mixture and nice balance between the admirable and desirable traits and also the negative. The brothers in this movie are the main focus during the entire course of this journey. So we see them from the very beginning having a very good relationship. They like each other, they'll support each other, they make each other laugh, and even accept each other's weaknesses and each other's quirks. But typical brothers, there's always some sort of conflict going on. They don't even argue at all together. They are so Disneyfied, so generic, so cliche, so happy and go lucky. It really pulls me away from the belief of this film. Pixar was great at creating these relationships that had conflict inherent in them, brewed inside of them, that could just at any moment explode or make one dislike the other. And in this film, it doesn't have that at all. The brothers in this film are the ideal. There is nothing that is at fault with them in terms of their relationship. And during the film, there are minor scuffles between them. There is a minor problem that happens at about the climactic point, and it took that long for them to get there. So by that point, I already just expected them to be this cliche relationship, and then I knew as they were going on into the movie that they needed to create some sort of conflict between them, so they were bound to happen because these two spend so much time together. But even that minor scuffle about the climax, about, Act 2, that part right there, it is quickly resolved, very quickly. It's brushed over, and they're back at being good brothers again. There's at one point that Ian, the younger brother, is embarrassed by his older brother because he comes in with a big van that's just heaving and coming along, and the brother Ian is very embarrassed by this, and he gets embarrassed in front of a bunch of his friends. At this point, it would have made a little bit more sense to add a little bit more conflict, a little more dynamics to their relationship by having Ian maybe pretend like that's not his brother and walk away from him. But instead, Ian just goes into the van with his brother and they go along like they're happy-go-lucky brothers again and again. And this keeps happening throughout the movie, which makes me dislike the relationship because there's nothing to compare it to. They're always good and they're always great. Not only was the brothers' relationship this endearing quality, it also went over to their relationship with their mother and their stepfather. There was no conflict between all of them. The mother was very understanding of both the brothers, even the one brother who has been staying at home for a year, and they brush over that fact. They brush right over it and they forget about it, and it's very slight in this film. It's very small that this brother has been staying at home and he should be focusing on his career or focusing on what he wants with his life, but instead they just brush right over it and accept him. I understand that in our regular day-to-day lives that would be nice, but in a movie where we want to create dimension, we want to create dynamic, we want to create depth, there is no depth to that relationship with their mother in particular. And even with their stepfather. So you would think, okay, now they have a stepfather, they have a new male figure in their family, this could brew some more conflict. Very tiny. It's a very small amount. The stepfather comes in and he's immediately accepted. None of the brothers have any tiffs with him. There's a very small exchange where the stepfather has to be accountable for the oldest brother because he was protecting a historical monument. They just added that in so they could remind you that there might be a slight deviation from the ideal in this almost heaven-like world. And with families, there's always an annoyance between people, and there's always that push and pull, and it should never feel like it's just all the same thing going on. But that was the problem. Their relationships were all very pristine and well put together, and there was no push and pull. Along with the relationships in this film, the character development was uninspired. So Ian, his character is that shy kid who has no confidence and who doesn't really have any friends at school. This is very typical and generic of Disney. This is something they keep using. It's a trope they continue to use, and was really hitting me over the head with it again, and I hated seeing it on screen. So that was just, from the very onset, was already off-putting, that it was just another kid that was shy, that lacks confidence, that's trying to be better than he is. I wouldn't have a problem with that kind of aspirations because it is relatable, it makes sense, but I would have liked to see something a little bit more redeemable about him. He is supposed to be endearing, a sweet kid, but we don't really get a sense of that really in the first act. There's no trait about him that makes him special, good, or the potential of greatness. Being sweet is a good quality. It's a very good trait, but something that he has had to work for, or something that he can stand out as a character for. Maybe he's smart, maybe he is musically talented, athletic. I could have given him any one of those traits just to add a little bit more depth again to him, because a lot of problem with a lot of these characters, they lack that depth. And especially with Ian, who's supposed to be the main character, you would think they would put a lot more effort into making his depth even deeper. But more interestingly enough, Barley's character, who is his older brother, is much more engaging. He has that depth to him because he is this college kid that doesn't really have any aspirations, doesn't have any dreams, but he's so friendly, kind, fun, and funny that he becomes this very interesting, dynamic character, while Ian is just this plain, got nothing going on for him. He doesn't have one trait for him that makes me want to yearn to see him become the winner at the end of the story. Another part of Ian's character that I didn't really like was his fixation on his dad in the first act. So I get it, his dad passed away and he's really thinking about his dad on his birthday, but it doesn't seem motivated. It doesn't seem motivated that this entire journey should be set forth because from the very get-go he's already thinking of his dad. Does he do this every day? Does he always think of his dad almost every single day? I hope not. That would be a weird obsession for a kid that hasn't seen his dad in 16 years, or hasn't seen, his dad has passed away presumably, and you would think that he would have gone through some sort of grieving process. There would have been a whole section that we're just missing from this film, and at this point, he's still fixated on his dad. So what I would have liked to seen is something like, okay, maybe it isn't Ian's birthday on the first minute of the film. Maybe instead that they are going to their dad's burial, or they're going to their dad's grave, and this is what spurs all the action going forward, why both of them really want to see their dad. Maybe even Ian forgot about his dad and he was reminded later on because of a gift that his dad gave him. There were so many more interesting and dramatic directions that they could have gone with Ian that I was really let down by his development in general. Overall, I think this movie's average. Its setting is what makes it special, but it's also what borderlines on cliche. My problem with this film is that there isn't that much conflict in it, and that's sort of a trait that's coming to all Pixar movies since Disney bought them. I don't know if it has anything to do with the writers or the acquisition. Whatever the case may be, since Disney bought Pixar, it's going on this downhill trend where they used to have this really gritty drama, or at least it had more teeth to it. It had more bite in terms of the story, in terms of what was happening, the conflicts that were ensuing. But now it sort of seems like they're just creating this pristine world that you can just escape to, that there is no conflict. And when there is no conflict, it doesn't make that ending satisfying. That's the problem, that when there is no conflict, that ending won't be as satisfying. So when these brothers finally reach the ending and they get the happy ending that would be, typical of a kid's movie, I don't feel like they deserved it. They didn't struggle to get there. They barely had to struggle to get there. Even with each other, they barely fought. So there was nothing that made me see that they deserved that ending. And even if we want to escape into a fantastical realm, we need that conflict. We need that conflict because it's what makes us relate to the characters. It's what makes us root for the characters. And because this film lacks that trait and many others, it's what gives it a 5 out of 10. It's really only worth watching if you're in the mood for an animated movie, or you just already have these expectations going in that you're just going to watch something that's sort of a spectacle, cute, adorable, idealistic. And this movie should never be on anyone's must-watch list. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Remember to subscribe, comment below, and I'll see you all next time.